Well, good morning and welcome to you today, this Thursday, April the 16th. The title of our devotion today is Jesus versus Religion. Mark 2:23 and 24. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" That's how picky they were. I discovered something that I did not realize. I figured the different sections were broken up, and I tell you, like, this is King's Cross. That's actually the name of another book that Tim Keller has written. I came across that in an email that was sent to me today, and so I got looking in the front of the book, and holy cow, he's written a whole bunch of books. They must be good. Jesus versus religion. Jesus claimed to be able to forgive sins, and the religious leaders called that blasphemy. But Jesus goes on to make a claim so outrageous that the leaders don't have a word for it. Jesus declares not that he has come to reform religion, but that he's here to end religion and to replace it with himself. The law of God directed that you had to rest from your work one day in seven. That was wonderful, of course, but the religious leaders of the day had fenced in this law with a stack of specific regulations. There were 39 types of activity that you could not do on the Sabbath, including reaping grain, which is what the Pharisees accused the disciples of doing. Mark goes on to record a second incident that took place on the Sabbath day in Mark 3 1 through 6, where they look on stubbornly as Jesus heals a man with a shriveled hand. Why does Jesus become angry with the religious leaders? Because the Sabbath is about restoring the diminished, it's about replenishing the drained, it's about repairing the broken. To heal the man's shriveled hand is to do exactly what the Sabbath is all about. Yet, because the leaders are so concerned that Sabbath regulations, oh, the old rules and regulations, they're all more for wanting to make sure those are observed. They don't want Jesus to heal this man. An incredible example of missing the forest for the trees. Their hearts are as shriveled as the man's hand. They're insecure and anxious about the regulations. They're tribal, they're judgmental, they're self obsessed instead of caring about the man. Why? Religion. Religion's about rules and regulations, do this, don't do that kind of thing. And if you can keep all the rules and regulations, well, then you're good. But Jesus gets in trouble because he understands that's not what it's all about. The law that he gave through Moses was about being in relationship with him, not jumping through hoops to make him happy. And that's what religion basically is. Um, so they're not one and the same. I like the title, Jesus versus Religion. It makes me think of a fight getting ready to start. And in this corner, we have religion. In this corner is Jesus. And we're going to bonk some heads. Um, there is competition. Not, I mean, religion's going to lose, but um, many people see the two as being very different, and they are very different in reality. But but the thing is, if you are like the Pharisees and you have this list of do's and don'ts that you've made up, which is what they did. In one of the sermons I did during Lent, we talked about how the scribes came up with a way to circumvent the rules for the Sabbath. And it was quite strange. I can't even remember all that was part of it. But just because the disciples were picking some heads of grain, now they're not going through with big buckets trying to bring in the grain and so they can take it home with them. They're simply walking through a field, just as we've all done over the years, I assume anyway, as kids going through, and you'd get a head of that and you'd kind of rub it together and you'd end up with individual grains. You can throw those in your mouth and eat them. Maybe that's what they were doing. Maybe they were hungry, and that made them angry. The Pharisees angry that they were doing that. You're breaking the rules. Pull them over, officer. And then there's this man being healed of a shriveled hand, which means he's been crippled by that condition, which means he can't do a lot of things that others can do. But Jesus did it on the Sabbath. Uh-oh, big boo-boo. We have rules and regulations. Hopefully we don't turn it into religion. We just have a sense at times that some things are proper and some things aren't. But we're not going to judge based on that. Hopefully we're not going to judge based on that. The religious leaders called everything that didn't fit into their list of rules and regulations, they called it blasphemy. Anything and everything they saw Jesus and or his disciples do that were breaking the laws, they were shocked every time. And they wanted to judge and they wanted to condemn. And that's the approach they used when they sent Jesus to the cross. They remembered all these different things. Oh, remember the time he did that? Oh, yeah, we need to get him for that. It's ugly. It's just ugly. There are religions in the world that have this very strict approach to things. Name them, but I think you have an idea of religions in our world that are very, very restrictive, especially for women. Especially for women. And they can't do so many things simply for the fact that they're a female. It's horrible, isn't it? Um, Sad, very sad. It is tribal, it's judgmental, and it's self obsessed, is the way Tim Keller puts a definition of religion. Tribal, judgmental, self obsessed, instead of caring for the persons with need. That's especially, that line comes after the segment on the man's shriveled hand that Jesus healed on a Sabbath. You think they'd have been happy for the man? Oh no, the rules have been broken. We can't be happy about that. What a horrible way to live, right? Yikes. I mean, if we'd hear a story like that, we go, oh, that's so great. Good for him. I'm glad, he's over that and that's been corrected and all that, which we do for people we know who have been very sick or have had very serious health issues. We're happy to hear when hope has been found. We're happy to hear when that situation that we thought was going to be the end of them was cured. Whether it was done on a Sunday or a Tuesday or a Friday, who knows? Who cares? It happened, and it's a good thing. The Pharisees, talk about your typical grumpy old man. Holy cow. They must have been really something to deal with. Uh, and then they're judging Jesus and they're judging his disciples. Meanwhile, they're bribing people to tell lies. They bribe men or women to say things about Jesus that they claim to have heard. They bribed Judas to turn Jesus in. Need them when they wanted to arrest him at night so there wouldn't be any big crowds showing up. Their lies, their judgment. They're shocked a number of times when Jesus tells a particular parable, like the Good Samaritan, and they get, I mean, they listen to it and then they go, you know what? I think the two bad guys are about us. that's that's a horrible way to have faith. They don't have faith. I don't think it doesn't appear that they do. But to live in that religion mode of do's and don'ts and being having the last word on things and the judgment of that. Wow, no wonder, no wonder Israel killed the killed the prophets when they showed up, because the prophets came with a message from God and they were going to blow that whole religion thing out of the water. They were there to tell them what God wanted them to do and to be, what their purpose was. And their purpose, even back then in the Old Testament, was to take the truth of God to the nations. In other words, they were supposed to be on a mission, just as we're supposed to be on a mission, taking the good news of Christ to the world, to our neighbors, to our coworkers, to whoever we come in contact with, to share that with them. Jesus versus religion. And in that game, religion loses every single time. Blessings to you today.